Yo, what is going on YouTube and all the social media platforms? My name is Jerry Trades and I'm here to share my story with you as to how I went from a homeless 17-year-old couch surfing on my friends' couches to now being a full-time stock option day trader that was blessed enough to clear $112,000 in one day. If you guys don't believe me, I'd love to show you guys the proof because this is a highlight of my own life and I feel like it's only right to share it with the world. So now that you guys have the proof there, this is my trading account, and for many that don't know what trading or what stock options are, or even just the stock market and how to navigate it, I'll go into details a little bit later, but to begin with, I want to share a little bit more of my experiences in my life that helped me develop to who I am today and how they impacted me. And hopefully you're able to relate to some of them to understand that you have the same equal opportunity that I did. So my journey with money and wealth and investing really started when I was 17 years old. It started with me when I was 17 years old. Really was built on a little bit of trauma. When I was being raised with my family, my parents were split up. My relationship with my father was never the greatest. He was pretty abusive to me because he wanted me to take after his footsteps, working in construction, and me myself being raised with my mother and being forced to kind of see my dad through the court system to a lot of other people deal with it with social workers and one weekend here, one weekend there. I forgot what the visits are called, but there's a whole judicial system around it. Well, long story short, my mother would always threaten me with sending me over to my dad's house to live with them. Constantly being threatened like this and being threatened to go live at a place where I didn't want to be forced my mind at a very young age to learn how to be independent. I was tired of the threats. I was tired of thinking like, man, I'm gonna go live with my dad. Like, my mom always told me, when you're 18 and if you don't have a job or if you don't go to college, I don't know how you're gonna figure it out, but you're gonna get out of here and you're gonna be on your own. This was extremely traumatic to me, and it shaped me to really start questioning, how is it that I'm gonna be an independent adult? And in reality, it's very difficult to achieve this without any proper guidance or help. And I guess I was able to do it. I'm not one of many, I'm not one of few. There's actually, individuals that are able to achieve this result in their lifetime. And I think that there's also many that aren't able to so quickly. And I truly believe that it's because of the environments and the people that they let influence them and pretty much limiting themselves to understand what they're truly capable of. So once I began getting threatened like this, I began discovering how money worked and how to create income for myself and how important it was. If you haven't realized it, everything that you want to do in this life costs money. You want to buy a nice house? Here in the state of California, an average home costs from $650,000 to $800,000. That is a significant amount of money. Me and myself, my family isn't coming from a lot of money. A lot of them are Hispanic, middle income, dual income household. My stepdad's making $150K in a year. My mother's clearing around 50. And we're really frugal. We don't drive nice cars. We don't live in a big mansion. But if you haven't noticed, all of this stuff is truly expensive and only continues to rise. So now knowing that as an adult I might have to generate $1 million just to have a house to raise a family is pretty challenging and pretty eye-opening. Many young adults my age are kind of naive to this idea, and they are kind of leveraging the fact that they have their parents helping provide for them, and they kind of haven't grasped the effect as to how serious it is to begin developing income skills and really grasping the effect and the importance of personal finance, saving, and investing to be able to create a better secure financial future for yourself. And I don't blame you guys. There's a lot of, these devices and social media are a huge distraction. You got reality TV shows, you got drugs, you have, girls and guys chasing girls, late night parties, you got people stuck on vapes. There's a lot of negative vices out here as a young adult that you are exposed to that can drive you to essentially kind of waste your time on earth. And although these experiences may provide you some sort of happiness and memories, they're not really going to provide you much value as an individual trying to build a family. So me being family oriented, this is a huge goal of mine to be able to achieve this at a young age so I can better experience the world for what it truly is. I desire to travel, I desire to have nice things and all the things that I never had growing up, and to also be able to provide that for my child because I never received those things. So this is something that I take very seriously. And to come back to my story, I don't come from much, so I'm going to share with you guys how I began. So I really began when I was 17 years old. I got my first summer job at my mom's company. Her boss was lucky enough to give me some opportunities, and I was there working about for $600 every 2 weeks, so $1,200 a month. And as a 17-year-old kid, that's a huge amount of money, and it kind of exposed me to the first feeling of freedom. I didn't have to ask my mom for anything that I wanted to buy. I didn't want to ask my mom for where it is I had to go. I was free because I had my own money. So that began to develop my mind and expose me to how money equals freedom. Many say that it doesn't buy you happiness, but I disagree. I think that money buys you the ability to purchase experiences, and those experiences kind of can lead you to happiness, or just having freedom in its own allows you to have happiness. And if you haven't really realized it, not everyone is technically free. And this is something that I also noticed when I was working, that I was exchanging so much of my precious time of my life for a dollar. And I began to kind of question the reality that my parents instilled in me, and to kind of discover my own reality. And I picked up a book at 17 as well called Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And I recommend you guys read this book really young. Although it's pretty boring and not as stimulating as picking up a phone and scrolling through social media, I believe that it provides you a lot of value, and the younger you read it and you begin to force yourself to understand it, the easier it's going to be to redevelop your mind, because as you get older, the experiences and the reality that you've been forced to live, it's a little bit harder to begin to spark that optimism, that switch. While you're young, you're like a sponge. Many say that around, and it's kind of true. So I heard this quote in the book called, "The rich don't work for money, money works for them." And that made me question everything. That made me question, like, why am I working for money? If I want to be rich, how can I make money work for me? So I took my $1,200, I began saving, and I had to come back to high school. Summer was over, we were entering senior year, and I remember quarter one seeing a young man come with a duffel bag full of chips. This young man pulled out a fat wad of cash about this big of ones, and it really drove my attention to how I could create income for myself with the opportunity I was given. So I remember going home, and this is my first experience with entrepreneurship, and I asked my mom, "Can you buy me a box of chips? Or can you take me to go buy a box of chips?" She took me to go buy a box of chips. I remember filling my duffel bag with these boxes of chips and going back to school the next day and starting immediately with one goal. I didn't care about my classes, I cared about selling this box of chips. I then started with my friends, close friends, then I started selling to their friends, and then I started selling to their friends. Then I had a clientele, and sooner by the Q3 of the year, my senior year, I was known as the chip guy, selling way more than one box of chips a day, and that made me extremely happy. I felt like I was a baller until the school year ended. Once the school year ended, I was faced with reality. No more chips. What do I do now? I'm forced to get a job. And at 17, I didn't know what it is I really wanted to do. I didn't know what to major in. Everyone was going to college. Some buddies were going to the military. Others were going to construction. I didn't see myself in any of those, so I was still figuring it out. So what I did do in the meantime, I didn't just stay at home and play hee hee ha 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 with my friends. I decided to go work. And I didn't have much opportunities that I was exposed to, so I decided to go work for a franchise. And I began working at Chipotle. And although I was making people's bowls and burritos, I always showed up every day with a positive attitude. I was really happy and optimistic, and just like, you know what, like, this is my first step in my journey, and I'm never going to forget this. So I was always happy, although the pay wasn't that great, making $13.50 an hour and introducing myself to people. "Hi, what can I have? What can I make for you today?" A bowl of burrito, white rice, brown rice, black beans, pinto beans, choice of protein, and really it seemed pretty robotic. And I don't know, I just didn't really enjoy the work. It didn't feel too fulfilling with me at the time, but I knew that I had to do it to be able to create income so I could jump to a next set of opportunities. So at the time, my friend started picking up another job at a warehouse. He let me in, took me to a staffing agency, and then the pay got a little bit better. So this is when my relationship with money started getting a little bit more serious, because I noticed that Working these jobs wasn't necessarily making me the happiest, but I knew that I needed to use the job and I couldn't let the job use me. So going to these warehouses, my pay then increased from $13.50 an hour to $25 an hour. And although it's not that much, it was good enough money for me at that age to where I could, work and still be kind of optimistic about my future. So I started talking to coworkers there at the company, and those guys were there for like 4 to 5 years, and I just was kind of in shock and didn't see myself working that long for these companies, and I knew I needed to act quickly if I wanted to escape. So what I did is I began saving my checks, and I began learning budgeting, I began learning saving, and I began learning what you call discipline. Although I had the money and I was making around $3,000 a month, I could have easily started buying nicer clothes, started affording maybe a nicer car. I stuck to it. I saved my first $3,000 and I bought my mom's used 2008 Nissan Altima. This car taught me what was the initial expenses of being a young individual, kind of independently. So while I was working at these warehouses, my mom kind of hit me with the question was, what are you going to do? And I started really questioning it myself. I don't want to stay at these warehouses. I need to apply myself. So I saved my first $8,000, and my mom then told me, I don't agree with what you're doing, because I decided after the warehouses that I wanted to pursue another set of opportunities, and I wanted to start my own detailing business. My mom was on board with it, but she wanted something more secure with it, and she told me that if you want to do this, you can't do it here. And I wanted to pursue another set of opportunities, so I decided to take the next step to moving out. And I moved in with some friends. One of my closest acquaintances at the time asked his mom if I could sleep on his couch, and she said yeah. So I remember sleeping on their couch, and the first 3 months that I was there, the only 3 months that I was there, I was adding people consecutively every day on social media, offering my services and pitching them, hey, I work in the local area, we work on SUVs, trucks, and cars. If you're interested in our services, these are our payments, these are our prices, and started just shooting what we call outreach messages. Shooting about 50 a day times 30 days in a month, 1,500 in a month, that I was reaching out to 1,500 different individuals, closing about a 10% ratio on them, cutting out 90% of them. So I was closing about 150 clients a day, and this is my first introduction to sales, marketing, and kind of social media. So I began to learn how to leverage this platform to be able to connect myself with other individuals and to be able to provide a service. So while I was working with these vehicles, keep in mind, when I was growing up, I was an only child, so I didn't have a lot of, friends to play with. I did go out, we did, do the usual, ride on bikes, have fun, but I wanted to kind of, at the time, just connect with other people in high school. They were playing video games, they were having fun. You would always hear stories about the parties on Call of Duty. So I spent a lot of my time playing video games, and one of the games that I used to play was Need for Speed. And this helped me develop a passion for performance auto vehicles, whether it be your standard, Camaro, Mustang, Corvette, I now own a Trackhawk. I began loving fast cars, and then I got into supercars and hypercars. So while I was detailing, I got my first high-end client. I remember working on this vehicle that is known as a McLaren 720S. Working on this vehicle, I remember how scared I was to scratch it or even do anything to it because I knew the value of this vehicle. Now sitting around $200,000 to $250,000 for a car. This blew my mind. Automatically restructured my reality as to what is possible in this world. And coming from a family that doesn't have a lot of money, seeing this vehicle and working on it and understanding that someone owned this, and on top of owning the car, also had a home to put it in, blew my mind. And I was like, you know what, maybe there's more to this life than what I know. So I began exploring different sources of income. But while I was detailing, I didn't have such a, let's say, fixed income. It depended a lot on my hustle and my ability to do these outreach messages and meet new clients. So although the income was very sustainable, it was a lot of effort that I had to do to maintain it. So I decided to step back from detailing, and I sold my business, just the equipment that I had for the business, and I got about $7,000 back. From that business, I then used that $7,000, saved it, and I asked my uncle for a job in residential roofing. Construction is my family's, my mom's side's, kind of family business. It's, roofing is specifically, not construction, but roofing specifically is my family, my mom's family's business. My family's not very close, and that's why I didn't get into it earlier. My family is like many other families, kind of broken and separated. Not every, sibling is talking to each other. There's not a lot of family reunions. There's no Thanksgiving where we get all together. There's no Christmases. Another factor that impacted, my family's unity was the fact that my stepdad decided to convert us to Jehovah's Witnesses. Although I don't practice the religion now, at the time when I was, kind of undecisive and couldn't make those decisions for myself, part of the religion is not celebrating holidays. So I kind of grew up a little bit of like, I don't know, you guys can say kind of boring. I didn't really find much, happiness in these holidays. Although I did see others enjoy them a lot, I kind of, never got that. And that kind of helped me focus more on, making money to escape and create the only reality that I wanted for myself. So going back to the, switching from detailing to roofing, I was working roofing, and another real event happened that impacted me was the day that we did a roofing job for a house that costed about $2.5 million. That's when it hit me. Seeing this property, the backyard, the pool, the garden, just the patio, like wow, like it was just unfathomable because no one in my family had ever owned something so nice and beautiful. The people that lived in there seemed so, not welcoming, but they didn't want us there. We're just Mexicans working on the roof, how they treat other people. So they weren't really excited for us to be there, but they didn't know who was on the roof. And I was extremely, young, now approaching 20 years old, and I seen this and was just extremely happy to just be there. So to kind of continue with the story is, after residential roofing, I then started exploring different investing opportunities. And that's when I started discovering how to trade stock options. Just like every other young adult that has a phone and is exposed to social media, you can kind of understand that there's a whole list of online businesses that give you the opportunity to grow as an individual. So one of these, there's a list of many that I tried and tried to understand, was online dropshipping, Amazon fulfillment. You had even ad clipping now. There is so many more that really were just out there. I myself didn't really want to participate in many because I seen that they had a lot of overhead costs. But one that really caught my attention was option trading. And the reason I was drawn to option trading was because there was individuals posting the results and profits that they were generating, and people were generating anywhere from close to $4,000 to $5,000 in a day. And coming from in residential roofing, that's something that I would make in a month. So I've seen the opportunity, although coming from these traditional environments, when they say that things are too good to be true, it's because they are. It was kind of discouraging at first, but it took me a while to kind of see that it was real and that the opportunity was, just kind of flashing before my eyes, and time was just going to continue whether I did it or didn't. That's when I was like, you know what, let me take this next step and get into it. So I began taking my first trades when I was around 18, really, because I always knew about the stock market. A teacher of mine in high school always shared with me that it's a great tool to begin wealth, especially while you're young. If you take advantage of it, you can develop a future for yourself where you're kind of set and you don't need to work. So that's where it kind of grew a lot of my, passion for it. So I started dabbling with it at 18, and I took my first option trade when I was 19. I remember it was AMD. I took a call option and I made $190 in 15 minutes, completely altering my reality on how fast it is I can make money. But I lost so much more money after that trying to learn on my own, and I kind of understand why now, because everyone, is kind of taking their first tries at it, and you're not going to succeed at first. And it does take a lot of guidance and a lot of practice to be able to begin analyzing patterns and understanding how certain events impact the stock market. More accurately impact the companies that are in the stock market. So I seen this and I was like, you know what? Let me take this real seriously. And I really started, trading full time about a year ago, taking my income from residential roofing because it was a fixed income, meaning something that I had every single month, whether I, message people or didn't. It's not compared to detailing. This was like fixed, meaning that I just had to show up, do my job, and I got paid. So I took advantage of this fixed income and I began investing in kind of, in a way at the time, gambling. I didn't really know what I was doing, but I knew that if a company was really down, I had a possibility to go up, especially if it was a famous company like Apple, Tesla, Nvidia, AMD, and a list of other companies as well. So really grabbed my attention, and I started really taking this seriously, and I continued this pattern. I remember losing $27,000 and almost giving up one of my trades. I traded BlackRock with Larry Fink, and I remember I was trading an FOMC meeting and Jerome Powell raised interest rates by 0.5%, and I was like, yes, he raised interest rates, the stock market's going to go down. I had a put option open on BlackRock, but that 0.5% raise on interest rates wasn't enough to tank the market. It was like something cute to the market, and the shares continued to rise. I lost $4,000 in 30 minutes, and that's when I was like, holy crap, I'm done. And I gave up on the stock market for an easy, maybe like, I'd argue that I gave up on the stock market for like 4 months. Kind of depressed, really out of it. Lost a lot of motivation, and well, continued working, continued grinding. That's when I went into life insurance. Another buddy of mine got into it. You know how those companies work. Multi-level marketing schemes that really paint a huge financial, future for yourself. You're going to be your own boss. You're going to work on your own hours. They really make it exciting. But at the end of the day, it's pretty tricky. So I got my license, but I didn't really get the value that I wanted out of it. So I didn't stick to it for long. Gave it about 3 or 4 months. And then after that, I switched into door-to-door solar sales, which helped me kind of overcome my fear of people and introducing myself and pitching people in person, and kind of not being afraid to express myself, and even less afraid of rejection. Because when you do door-to-door sales, you deal with about 95% rejection, and if you're lucky, 5% yeses. So this one was really helped me develop as an individual. Solar sales was alright. I would say that the return on my time wasn't as profitable, and once I had more income, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna try the stock market again. So I started the market again. I remember my first trades were making like $600, $700 in a day. So these were still, building a lot of confidence and momentum in myself. And then later on, as I continued with more capital, I started leveraging a little bit more, and I began making close to $1,000 a day, $1,500 in a day, losing $400, losing $300, but never as much as I was winning. So this began to really reinforce my mind to double down on the stock market. And it finally comes down to the time. The day that I chose to leverage not my entire portfolio, because my portfolio value was sitting around $34,000 at the time. And I took a really huge position on Tesla when they announced that they would be releasing robo-taxis in Austin, Texas. I believe in the month of June they announced it. And Tesla was already extremely oversold in the month of March. So I found value in this opportunity. And I was like, you know what? Something that my gut's telling me, F it. And I was like, okay. I went ahead and took call options, and I leveraged the biggest position of my life, which was $26.7 thousand. And I remember opening the trade, immediately going down $3,000, and then it began to climb up. I went up to about $1,500, rose to $5,000, $5,000 to $6,000, $6,000 up to $12,000, $12,000 back to $8,000, $8,000 up to $20,000, $20,000 up to $23,000, $23,000 back to $18,000, $18,000 up to $30,000, $30,000 up to $24,000, $24,000 up to $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000, until, of course, a fluctuation all the way until we got up to the top at $116,000. And to kind of prove that to you guys, here's the trade log where you guys can see it. It's right here. $116,000 in trading profits. So let that focus there. Right there. $116,000 in trading profits with 452%, selling each contract for $355, and I acquired them for about $27 or $47. One of the biggest returns in my life, and that ultimately changed my entire reality and how I viewed how to create money, and finally bringing to fruition the quote that I read when I was 17, that the rich don't work for money, money works for them. And this is a reality that is really hard to share and others to understand, because everyone around me is very traditional. They don't understand the stock market. They've never been experienced to it, and neither less have they been exposed to stock options. So when I tell people what I do, they don't believe it. They think it's, of course it looks unreal, but bro, my life wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't. And well, after generating $116,000 in the stock market, I pretty much had cleared more than I had ever imagined I would in 1 year, and I pretty much was outperforming what my parents thought was a lot of money. And instead of really dedicating myself to going to shoot for $1 million and kind of just be selfish with my skill set, I decided to kind of double down and to teach others and to help others, because I understood just how many people don't understand the stock market. They don't even understand stock options, even less. So I then built SoCal Trading Group. So that's when I was like, you know what? I took care of myself for the year. I can live off of this for X amount of months to come. Let me double down and really keep the foot on the pedal and help others. So I decided to really build SoCal Trading Group to help other young adults kind of escape negative influences. I know a lot of other young adults are similar to me, trying to find a way of success and financial freedom to be able to explore the world and build themselves independently to become, more sufficient adults and provide more value to help their parents, or, some are already having kids and to provide more for their kids. Others need to take care of, medical bills and other unexpected expenses, and they want that extended sense of security. So you can't be naive as to how the world works. And that's something that I understood, that if I go talk to someone about the stock market, they don't even know what's going on. They just know their job, they know what they do after work, and everyone has their own little world. And very few actually, go take that next step into the stock market. And when they do, sometimes they lose, and because they lost, they give up and they just keep on saving. And not everyone is investing. And I truly believe that to truly secure financial future for yourself, you have to invest your money. Like I mentioned, the pyramid of a job, a side hustle, and investing, it's the ultimate goal, and in my own personal experience too, really building some security for yourself. And well, I hope that's able to help as much people as possible, especially because given the circumstances with all the social media, there's so many negative, things. But yeah, this really did change my life, and I think that you guys can do it too. And I really wanted to share with you guys my story so you guys can understand that if I could do it, you can do it. And I'm not special. My circumstances aren't any different than majorities. I didn't go to school. I'm not saying school is bad. I just didn't have a major that I was passionate about, that I wanted to pursue for me to really dedicate my life to a career. I just knew that a career paid you money, and money was what you needed to kind of survive in this world. And I started developing a real priority in my life to be able to address it. And if you're a young adult and you're just like me, you don't know what you want to do, you're struggling to figure it out, it's completely normal. I didn't share a lot of the sad parts of my story, where when I was sleeping on these couches, I would really, struggle with keeping myself optimistic, and there is moments in my life where I really kind of didn't wake up grateful to be alive. I know I struggled, I wouldn't say I was clinically depressed, but I for sure would wake up with, not too much motivation, waking up every day, not getting a text from your parents while you haven't been home in the last 8 months, they don't even care to feed me. It really really impacted my mind and made me feel like no one cared and I didn't matter. So I almost made a really stupid decision, but I'm glad I overcame that dark moment in my life, because just a few years later, my life completely changed, and now I guess I could say they're kind of proud of me. So I want to be there for you guys and really teach you guys the importance of personal finance, because I think that without you guys taking money very seriously, you're never going to end up truly making or being able to invest to create more for yourself. And don't fall for all the illusions out here. Like, dude, if you want to go buy a car, you want to put gas in it, you want to buy a house, you want to put furniture in it, you want to have a family, you want to feed them, everything costs money. Don't be fooled by all the other distractions out here. We have one mission as a young adult: establish an income for ourselves to have enough money to experience the world for what it is. Not just the city that you're born in. The world is so much bigger than this. And this is so funny because Whenever I lose motivation, I kind of look at myself on this map here, and I look at where I'm at. So we're here in the state of California, right? If I keep zooming out, there's so many other states. That's barely Nevada. And then if I continue to zoom out, I'm here and the rest of the world is here. There's no reason for me to think that the only place that I'm ever going to learn in my life is what I know here around me. The world is huge. I have plans to go visit Japan, plans to go maybe live in France for a while, plans to go visit South Africa and hunt a lion, have it stuffed and as a decoration in my living room one day. I want to own a cabin in Big Bear Lake. I want to have multiple homes to take my family to vacation in. I didn't grow up with none of this stuff, but knowing the reality that I've been exposed to now and what I've created for myself has brought me more enlightenment and belief that that could be a possibility than ever in my life. And I feel like you guys deserve the same opportunity, but I understand that as a young adult without guidance, especially a young adult in these lower to middle income environments. You know, growing up in the Inland Empire, all we know is, like I said, a lot of young men are chasing alcohol, chasing girls. You know, a lot of guys are doing dumb things with their friends, partying late nights. There's plenty of negative vices out here that are influencing the youth to kind of what I would say is practically almost wasting your life. Because although your parents are working hard to put a roof over your head and you're contributing your X amount of rent, there's a lot more in a bigger game to play if you really want to provide for your family and create a life of abundance for yourself. It's a lot of work, but I want to be here to tell you that it's not impossible. And once you learn something like investing or something like, you know, there's a lot of other high income skill sets that you can learn. My high income skill set is trading options. And what I was also picking up intuitively is that nobody else knows my reality. No one else knows about the stock market, and even less how to trade stock options. So I built a business around this. And I established SoCal Trading Group about 2 months ago, where I first began to teach individuals how to invest in the stock market. But before the stock market, I teach you how to invest in yourself, how to discipline yourself with your money, how to snap out of the he, ha, 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 young adulthood that you're living. You have to take it very seriously. You have to know how to track your expenses. You have to know how to budget yourself, how to manage auto loans. Make sure you get the best interest rates. Make sure that you're not being charged over state taxes. Because a lot of used car dealerships, when I was buying my economic Prius, I crashed it, so I escaped that loan. But the dealership raised state taxes on the deal so they could profit more. Also raising the interest rate on the vehicle when interest rates from my credit union were a lot lower. And also learning how to establish credit cards, how to protect your credit, raise your credit score so you could qualify to buy a home, so you could qualify to buy a nicer car. These are all very important key factors of personal finance that unfortunately the younger generation isn't learning because one, their parents don't even understand it, so they can't teach their kids how to do it. I had to learn all this for myself because I had to grow up all by myself without much guidance. It was very difficult for me, and I plan to kind of share my experiences to make it easier for others. Because I believe in my life that it's better to help someone than to help no one. And that's my motto, and I live by that. Because I was once that kid that wanted help, needed guidance, and no one was there to give it to me. And it's just the unfortunate truth, and I'm not looking to seek any sympathy from it. But reality, I do believe in helping others, and that's kind of what I intend to do with this channel. And I also understand how messed up life can be to treat others. It's extremely unfair. A lot of us come from, you know, especially if you're in these lower income environments, you're experiencing things like, you know, drug abuse, you have domestic violence, you have, you know, abusive relationships. Like, there's a list of problems that exist in these environments that, you know, maybe someone else that's blessed doesn't have to deal with. So this is something that I really, you know, want to help those individuals to maybe escape from and build a better future for themselves. But you have to understand that it all begins with how you make and invest and spend your money. And I believe a philosophy that I always tell people is the pyramid. The pyramid is something that I came up with when I was a young adult, and it kind of helps structure your life while you're young to be able to understand how to generate more. And there's a whole way to build this thing, right? So it starts like this. Bottom layer is your job. Why your job? Because your job is your fixed income. No matter what you do, as long as you show up, you're going to make this income. Now your next step is what you do after you get out of your job. Well, then you have your side hustle, which is what I think is the most key factor because it allows you to tweak your income higher than what your job allows you depending on how much you invest yourself into it. So my side hustle was detailing, my fixed income was roofing, and then once I had those two streams of income and I was scaling my detailing business, I then finally jumped to the top of what I call the pyramid, which is investing. Investing is extremely diverse. You can invest in bonds, you can invest in stocks, you can invest in real estate, you can invest in cryptocurrency, you can invest in stock options. There's a world of investing out there, but at the end of the day, like I said, Robert Kiyosaki quoted, "The rich don't work for money, money works for them." And that's super, super vital to your survival as an individual, especially if you're trying to build a secure financial future for yourself. Make money work for you so you're not working for money. Whenever you clock into your job, make sure to use the job and don't let the job use you. Why? Because your time on this earth is extremely precious, and if you haven't realized it, you only get one shot. And that's another thing that really impacted my life recently is growing up I always heard people passing away, so-and-so died, so-and-so passed away, but it never really hit me until about a few months ago where I seen my great-grandfather's viewing, and I was kind of blessed with the opportunity to see my first body with no life in it. And that really shocked me and really kicked my brain in overdrive to understand that the life that we have here is limited. And I believe that we're here to use it correctly and to benefit and help others. A lot of us share different knowledge, a lot of us share different experiences, and that's why I encourage you. If you have the opportunity, share your story, because you never know who you can help, and it's always better to help someone than to help no one. It's pretty repetitive, but it's true. This is just my way of living my life. And if you agree with it, I hope that it helps you. So pretty much establishing SoCal Trading Group was kind of the next step in my life and in my journey, because it kind of aligns with what it is I find fulfilling in my life. And to help young adults understand the stock market and invest in stock options and make a better life for themselves sounds like something that I don't mind dedicating the rest of my life to. So I hope that this video was able to help you. I know it's not as entertaining. It's a lot of value, a lot of information about my personal life, but I hope that this is an introduction to myself and how my life changed trading stock options, and I hope it inspires you to believe that you have the same set of opportunities and the same chance to explore it. And if you need any help with guidance on personal finance, intro to the stock market and long-term investing, or intro to stock options and other forms of investing, I'd be glad to help you. And this is my video and outreach to you. And I hope you guys have a beautiful day. Jerry Trades, over and out.